Hey friends, welcome to the Human Experience podcast. My name is Sydney. I'm so grateful that you're here. And today I want to talk about closure. I feel like closure is a topic that you typically hear with closure isn't real. You have to give closure to yourself. And perhaps at times in life, that is true. However, I'd like to share a recent experience where I, in fact, did get closure. And I'm going to be honest, it's really helping me move on. And I really want to share this because the key to getting closure that I found is being a good communicator. It doesn't really matter. I don't think closure can come from just having that one last conversation. I think you get closure from being very intentional with your conversations. And a big part of my intention for this podcast, this video, this episode, and this show in general is to share everything that I've learned and share my real world experiences because one of my greatest passions is improving my level of emotional intelligence. Having the tools of good communication is crucial. It's everything. It is foundational to our relationships. And at the end of the day, what really will lead to a great, fulfilling life is regardless of all the material things, which are great, and you can desire that and want that and manifest that all you want. But it's having those things to share with the people you love that's really going to create fulfillment in your life. It is having depth of connection with people in your life. Okay, guys, hopefully I can finish the thought that had just come out, but I forget what I was saying. I actually just took the bottom off of this podcast mic stand, and I'm so excited because I have been wanting just like a handheld microphone, and this isn't exactly the vibe I wanted. I want just like a kind of like a pop star mic, but this is great. This feels like this feels like a core need was just met. So this is kind of a big moment for me. Also, a quick side note, I just went on a walk because like I said, I was feeling kind of depressed this morning. And throughout the day, like the job that I have right now is it's okay. It's okay for sure. But sometimes I do feel a little depressed because it's pretty monotonous. And anyway, I got home and I went for a little walk. I've just been really craving nature. Like, I love Los Angeles. I wanted to move here for several months before I actually got to. I'm so grateful to be here. However, I have had some really scary experiences recently with some houseless people that were threatening me, and it's just made me realize I'm not in Colorado anymore. I'm missing the nature. City life is different. It's different. But I do want to talk and stay focused on this experience with my ex. So, to give some context on this relationship, I was dating this man for about 4 months. Like we were seriously dating for 4 months, which doesn't sound very long, but we met in this leadership and emotional intelligence workshop. So it was like an intimate container. Everyone's vulnerable, everyone's heart is just blasted open. Like this was the most profound, loving, healing, beautiful relationship I've ever experienced. And it's crazy that it was only within 4 months. The relationship ended pretty abruptly. And for context of how it ended, he started to be a little bit distant towards me. He had been such an incredible, consistent, loving partner. And then all of a sudden, he was doing the bare minimum. And it was really hurtful and really confusing. And to be honest, after a series of events and confronting him of like, hey, you didn't answer this really vulnerable message I sent you. I'm confused. And then like it kind of was this continuation of working through things. And when I realized his behavior wasn't changing after a solid 3 weeks, and he was at this point pretty consistently distant, I was so fed up with him, I was ready to break up with him. However, 90% of the relationship had been really healthy, had been really fulfilling and amazing. So instead of breaking up with him immediately, I sat him down and I said, I'm really frustrated. Here's the way I'm seeing everything. I would break up with you, but again, so far things have been good. So I want to be clear that I'm at this point, and if you want to stay in this relationship with me, like your behavior needs to change. Like I can't be in this relationship with you being lukewarm and one foot in, one foot out. Like it is so painful. It was a very sobering conversation for both of us that ultimately led to us breaking up within the next few days. Even though I was the one who kind of initiated this big conversation and the desire to get out of the relationship, he was the one that kind of pulled the plug, and I had been so happy. So the end of that relationship was so hard for me, and it's been about 6 months now since we broke up, and up until this recent experience, I was still not fully over him. It would come in waves, actually, like, there were moments where I was totally over him, felt great, but then I'd get this wave of intense sadness, and he's really successful, and I would oftentimes, like, compare myself to him, and I really was missing the way it felt to be with someone so ambitious, and he holds such a powerful masculine energy that I just love it, and it allowed me to be so lost in my feminine energy. And I will say, as much as I love being in my feminine, with that dynamic, I recognize now that I was too lost in my feminine, and I think that he's actually in a little bit of a wounded masculine energy. So the energy it brought out of me was kind of wounded feminine. But at times, dating this man was so surreal, you guys, because it was like this primal instinct of like, I want to cook for this man. I want to just like take care of him. And honestly, it felt really good. I still like am so driven with my goals, and I hope this podcast and the message I'm spreading can reach as many people as possible. And like, oh, it just felt so good to be in that relationship. So fast forward, you know how I said we met in like an emotional intelligence workshop? They have follow-up workshops, and he was coming into town because didn't mention, but we were in a long distance relationship, and he was coming into town for one of these workshops. We had been on a group FaceTime because we have a bunch of mutual friends, and oh my God, as soon as we were on this FaceTime, the sexual tension between us was through the fucking roof. And my best friend was on the call, and she's like, girl, even I could feel the tension between the two of you. And I'm like, oh, God damn, like, what are we gonna do about this? And again, I knew he was coming into town. And, you know, sometimes you just gotta have a little bit of fun. And I was very clear that entertaining the idea of reconnecting with my ex and essentially hooking up with my ex again. I knew the idea of reconnecting with my ex would likely bring up a lot of emotions for me. And while, of course, there's a part of my ego and like my higher self that would want to protect me and make the right decision and keep moving forward, I knew in my gut there was a reason I was meant to reconnect with him. I felt it so strong. It was a clear intuition, like clearly from my intuition. So I leaned all the way in. It was definitely really painful. It brought up a lot of emotions, but I think that being with him and having those emotions come up was absolutely necessary for me to get to where I'm at now. And next, I want to share specifically about this point of closure because it ended in such a weird way. Like, he was late for this workshop when I was dropping him off. So I was like, we like quickly hug and I was like, am I gonna see you again? Like, is this it? And he's like, I'll text you. And then I realized throughout the day, like, at this point, it is just fucking hurting me to continue seeing him and connecting with him. So I texted him, it's best if I don't see you. And he didn't respond. Then, you guys. I hate to say, but my period was running a few days late. I just didn't want to bring it to him. But once I did get my period, thankfully, I texted him and I said, "Hey, I just want to equalize the playing field a little bit. My period's been late. I didn't want to stress you out. Meanwhile, I've been stressed out. And I think it's important that you understand the differences that a man and a woman experience after having sex." I felt really powerful saying this message. I felt really good. I genuinely felt like it was a clear intention to make sure he knows like the same level of consequences that I have to be aware of as a woman who could get pregnant. So I felt really good about that. I went on to have an amazing rest of my day. And by the end of the day, he still had not responded. And at this point, you guys, I was really hurt because he's a good guy. And the story I was creating is that he's just a fucking asshole. Like, how can you see that text and not respond? I was so hurt. Long story short, I ended up calling up this ex boyfriend of mine, and he answers the phone. He's like, "Hey, what's up? So chill. How's it going, buddy?" No, I was very clear. I said, "Are you open to have a conversation right now? Like, do you have the time and space for a conversation?" He said, "Yeah, I am. I'm free. I have a few minutes." And I was very clear going into this call. What are my intentions? I was clear that my intention was to hold him accountable and to end with peace in our relationship. So that is what really allowed this conversation to be so effective. And I really encourage that level of intentionality when you're communicating with an ex, with a good friend, with a coworker. Like, if you ever need to have a big conversation, before you go into it, take a moment to ground and be clear, what is your intention? What is your goal for like the resolution of this conversation? What are you hoping to get out of it? Because that will allow your energy to be so clear. And I think for a lot of people, it can be really hard to have these confronting conversations. But a lot of times, what's hard about confronting conversations is that we're not clear what energy we want to lead with. And so, the more clear you can be, and the more conscious and conscientious that you can be going into these types of conversations, you are not only setting yourself up for success, but also you're creating room for the person you're connecting with to respond in a similar way. Because if you just go in frantically to a conversation and let's say your energy is blaming the other person, naturally they're going to get defensive. Like, it's not going to be a productive conversation. So, what really worked in this conversation is that I led from a place of love. I told him that it's so much easier for me to move on from this relationship painting you as the bad guy. But this relationship meant so much to me. And I truly see that you are such a beautiful soul and such an amazing man. And I refuse to believe that you're a bad person. And I don't want to. You not responding to this was really hurtful to me. And I was really surprised that you would do that. And he was really receptive because I led from such a place of love. It allowed both of us to soften into a place of true vulnerability and openness. And he was really grateful that I was calling him and taking the time to make him aware of his actions and how they make people feel. And I'm sitting there like waiting for an apology. He's like kind of going on, and I really am like, okay, naturally he's going to say sorry, but he didn't. And so I stayed quiet for a few moments, and I was very clear in my mind that I wanted him to apologize, but it occurred to me that he doesn't know what I'm thinking. So I said to him, I would really appreciate an apology. And it's in that moment where I felt all my power come back to me. The ways in which I held him on a pedestal and idealized him and all of these things. I just felt like all of these wounded energetic cords die in that moment. It was so powerful. And I really hope this can inspire somebody who is going into a similar conversation to be bold enough to ask for what you want, even if what you want is an apology. And a quick side note, when we were connecting the weekend he was visiting, we were definitely in some deep processing. And one of the things that I was processing, which feels very vulnerable to share, but I know is relatable, so I will share, is that, obviously me and him had hooked up, and then it kind of had this casual feeling because it was clear we weren't going to get back together. And from my past and like a guy that I had been with in high school where I really took on this belief that men only want me for my body. And after having sex with me, like they don't really care about me. And even though I know that this person, my most recent partner, cares about me, that deep wound and insecurity was coming up in such a strong way. And so I was telling him that, and I asked him for reassurance, which is so vulnerable. And I think there's a pressure and a narrative pushed onto us that you cannot ask for reassurance, that, you need to reassure yourself. That has to come from within. And if you're looking for it outside of yourself, if you're looking for validation or reassurance, like that's wrong, that's toxic. But the truth is, sometimes we need reassurance. Sometimes that's what would really soothe us. And if we're emotionally aware of a need that we have, and we're clear, it's not coming from a place of, I need you to do this for me, but of, what would really support me in this moment is like hearing you say this, like reassuring me that you do care about me and this belief isn't true. And he was so receptive. And through this conversation, I feel like I was really able to unravel and release this like really deeply ingrained belief system and this like neural pathway that has just been like getting stronger and stronger as the thoughts keep coming and keep going in this groove. And by asking him for reassurance and for him giving me a really profound response, there was so much healing. So, my friends, I hope that this conversation can inspire someone out there to improve their communication skills. And if that's something you're wanting to go deeper into and increase your levels of emotional intelligence, I am accepting one-on-one clients, so feel free to reach out. Send me a DM on Instagram, and if you're not following me, I'll attach all the links in the description below. I'm so excited for so many things that are coming soon, and yeah, if you want to stay in touch, definitely subscribe, follow the podcast, follow my Instagram. Let's stay connected, let's be friends, and let's grow and thrive together. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.